I, like many gamers, quite enjoy a challenge, so it's no surprise that I'm a big fan of the poster child for video game toughness, the Soulsborne series. These games are massively popular, and they earn it because they really are spectacular action RPGs, but their wide recognition is largely thanks to their reputation as hard games. And much of their enjoyability comes from the rewarding feeling of overcoming the challenges they set out, as much as from their storytelling and gameplay. It's for their status as challenging games that the series is so revered, as it proves that well-crafted, difficult games can be successful. However, the most common things you'll find online are guides on how to make progressing through the game easier. Now, this stems from multiple points. 1. People are impatient or don't have a lot of time to commit, and sometimes they just want to experience the game without the brick wall grind. 2. Those games are maddeningly obtuse sometimes, and 3. Some people can really love the game but the system just never clicks for them, or they have issues keeping up with the gameplay, and they can't help but get stuck and need the extra help. Because of the strict nature of these games, this help generally comes in the form of walkthroughs, optimal setups, and ways to just cheat the system and cheese things. I'm very much of the opinion that this sharing of knowledge around a difficult game is an excellent way to build a really strong community, which is an aspect of gaming in particular that's really awesome to see. Just people helping each other out, brought together to overcome these challenges and united by their love for these games. However, these communities also contain some strife, especially surrounding the notion of making these games more accessible. Now, this is something that always seems to bring out the most standoffish arguments in all of gaming. In my time with fighting games, I was a vocal advocate for the improving of accessibility and allowing games to accommodate as many people as possible. This was an incredibly divisive topic, and there are a vocal group of people seemingly in most gaming spheres that tend to rally against these kinds of changes in games. Many people believe that improving accessibility through making accommodations to make games easier will in some way spoil the sanctity of their status as high difficulty. I've argued against this mentality many times in the past in relation to fighting games, and I won't bore you with those arguments here. However, an important distinction to make is that when you're talking about games like the Soulsborne series, you have to remember that they are largely single-player experiences. This makes the gatekeeping mentality some people may have start to seem a little bit more ludicrous, because if another player's experience has no bearing on your own whatsoever, why should you care what it's like? You shouldn't at all feel like another player's experience with a game in any way devalues your own. Games are there for you to enjoy, and you don't have to measure this against anybody else. I mentioned earlier that a significant portion of the content online for the Soulsborne series and games like them comes in the form of guides, optimal strats, and cheesy setups. These guidelines can help people who are struggling with the games and give them the edge they need to power through them. However, it can be argued that playing in these ways can just not be as enjoyable as it should be, because you can deprive yourself of experiencing the game to its fullest. It's at this point that we must consider introducing a variable difficulty system. In many games, this could be as simple as changing a few numbers, enemy health being reduced or timing leniencies being extended, for example. Doing this would mean that people would get to enjoy the game, mostly as intended, just at the level they are comfortable with. The identities of these games would be preserved, as this is largely entwined with the game's system. Dark Souls would still be Dark Souls, for example, with all of the core gameplay that makes it what it is. But the interaction with it would be scaled to what the player wants, and it's a good thing that as many people as possible get to enjoy games. I know to some people that goes without saying, but you'd be surprised how many people seem to disagree with that sentiment. I fully recognise that these games have been crafted to give a specific experience, but if people want it slightly different, why not let them? It could be argued that Dark Souls in particular would never have become so popular were it not for its status and image as a difficult gaming experience, but I mean, if it did have variable difficulty, and when you chose the normal option you got regular Dark Souls, it'd still have garnered a reputation as brutal and unforgiving, especially since how much of its identity comes from how its combat system works, but it wouldn't actually be unforgiving to the point of exclusivity, because that accommodation had been made. Also, you'd had the added challenge of not lowering the difficulty when things got a bit rough, but you'd have that option available if you thought it would improve your enjoyment of the game. And let's not pretend for a moment that easier gaming experiences can't be fun and rewarding. For example, did you play the Lego games? They're great. Granted, they might not be your favourite things to play, you might not have played one since you were a kid, but they're still beloved games that happen to be so easy they are basically impossible to lose. And a lot of the joy that comes from playing them is helped by how forgiving they are, so you can imagine how fun having an easier mode in a game more suited to your current tastes might be. So don't let any misguided gatekeeper opinions keep you from enjoying a nice, easy, chill time. Because you work hard. You want an easy game? You deserve an easy game. I don't have to tell you that plenty of games exist with difficulty options already, but the best example I can give is the Halo series. The many difficulty settings exist so that players looking for different experiences can get the most enjoyment possible by tailoring the game to fit their needs. Having been a huge Halo fan for years, I've played these games, except for 2 and 5, on every difficulty, as they were the first first-person shooters I ever played. I started on easy, which allowed me to get into the genre and learn the systems, and then gradually worked my way up as I started to want different things from the game. A little while ago I went back to play some of the Halo games on legendary difficulty, which is the highest setting possible, and I found that playing through something that is just unreasonably hard and persevering, improving and eventually completing the game can be massively rewarding, but it's also just exhausting. I happen to quite like the experience, but I can imagine someone else playing it for 5 minutes and instantly being turned off from the game. That is how some people feel when they come to a game that doesn't have a variable difficulty level, and that is incredibly unfortunate. So if you don't think games should have more accessible difficulty options, I suggest you only ever play Halo on legendary difficulty and then see how that affects your viewpoint, because sometimes you just don't want that struggle experience, and that's fine. You should get what you want out of games. There is no right way to play, and you don't have to earn or prove anything. In fact, a game being too difficult can just be annoying. The legendary setting on Halo? Rubbish. You should play on heroic or normal if you want that primo Halo experience. And if I'm being honest, games like Dark Souls especially can just be tedious, which is only exasperated by their difficulty. And sometimes you don't have the time or the inclination to be dealing with that nonsense. The impressiveness of completing a game on a higher difficulty is in no way diminished by the presence of a lower one, and nobody should feel pressured into seeking out higher difficulties than they are comfortable with. Your experience is your own. Just do whatever is right for you and be happy that other people get to do the same. In conclusion, games are for everyone and should be made with everyone in mind. I know this is a very difficult topic to deal with, however, so I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. I'd also be very grateful if you could share your thoughts on this video, as feedback is very helpful. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a like and check out some of the other content on this channel, and feel free to share my videos wherever you'd like. Subscribe if you want more from me in future, and follow my Twitter if you want updates. For now though, thank you for watching and have a wonderful day. Bye.